The break room at Pinnacle Marketing smelled like microwaved fish and judgment. I sat at my usual spot in the corner, carefully pouring hot water over my store-brand instant noodles. Chicken flavor, because it was 10 cents cheaper than beef. "There she goes again," Bradley announced to the room, his voice carrying over the hum of the refrigerator. "Sophie and her gourmet cuisine. What is this, day 90 of the ramen diet?" "Day 112, actually," Melissa corrected, flipping her professionally styled hair. "I've been keeping track. It's like watching a social experiment in real time. How long can a human survive on sodium and preservatives?" The others laughed. They always laughed. The young executives and account managers with their sushi platters and sweet green salads, their craft coffee and designer water bottles. And me, Sophie Martinez, junior copywriter, with my 68-cent lunch and refillable water bottle I'd bought at a garage sale. "Maybe she's saving for something special," Derek suggested with fake concern. "What is it, Sophie? Saving up for a car that actually starts on the first try?" More laughter. I stirred my noodles and said nothing. I learned silence was easier than explanations they wouldn't believe anyway. "I bet it's for a new wardrobe," Melissa stage whispered. "Have you noticed she's been wearing the same 5 outfits on rotation for the past year?" "I had 7 outfits actually. 2 were in the laundry." "Leave her alone," said James from it, but even his defense came with pity. "Maybe she's got student loans or something." "We all have student loans," Bradley countered. "But we still manage to eat actual food. It's about priorities, James. Some people choose to live like humans." My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Probably another debt collector for bills that weren't even mine, debts I'd inherited along with my grandmother's broken-down house when she died 6 months ago. But something made me answer. "Sophie Martinez?" The voice was crisp, professional. "Yes. This is Harrison Blackwell from Blackwell, Sterling and Associates. I'm calling regarding your submission to the Hamilton Estate DNA Registry." My heart stopped. Around me, the break room chatter continued, but it felt suddenly distant. "Are you able to speak privately, Ms. Martinez?" I stood abruptly, leaving my noodles steaming on the table. Melissa made some comment about my urgent call from the dollar store, but I barely heard her. In the stairwell, I gripped the phone with trembling fingers. "I'm here. Ms. Martinez, I'm pleased to inform you that your DNA test has confirmed you as a direct descendant of Archibald Hamilton. Specifically, you are his great-great-granddaughter through his son Theodore's illegitimate line." I sank onto the concrete steps. "You're sure?" "Quite certain. We've run the test 3 times. You are, in fact, the only living heir to the Hamilton industrial fortune." The Hamiltons. I'd heard the name my whole life, seen it on buildings, museums, hospitals. Old money, real money, the kind of money that shaped cities and influenced governments. My grandmother always said, I started, then stopped. Grandma Rosa had always claimed her mother had been a Hamilton, cast out for getting pregnant by a factory worker. Family legend. I thought. A fairy tale poor people told themselves. Your great-great-grandmother, Elena Hamilton, the lawyer confirmed. Archibald's youngest daughter. She was disinherited in 1910 for marrying beneath her station. But the current will, drafted by Archibald's last surviving grandson before his death last year, specifically includes all biological descendants, legitimate or otherwise. How much? I couldn't finish the question. The estate is valued at approximately $2.8 billion, Ms. Martinez. There are properties, investments, art collections, and various business holdings. You are the sole beneficiary. Billion, with a B. I need to sit down, I said, then realized I was already sitting. I need to, when do I? We'd like to meet with you at your earliest convenience. Tomorrow, if possible. There are documents to sign, authentication procedures to complete. I should warn you, once this becomes public, your life will change dramatically. I thought about my coworkers upstairs, still laughing about my noodles, about my studio apartment with a broken air conditioner, about the 3 jobs I worked to pay for DNA tests from ancestry sites, hoping to prove what Grandma Rosa had always insisted was true. Ms. Martinez, are you still there? Yes, I'm here. Tomorrow is fine. Excellent. Oh, and Ms. Martinez, you might want to consider retaining personal security. Once news breaks about the inheritance, you'll need protection. After he hung up, I sat in the stairwell for 20 minutes, staring at my hands. The same hands that had scrimped and saved every penny for 6 months to afford the specialized Hamilton family DNA tests. The same hands that had eaten instant noodles while my coworkers dined on $40 lunches. When I finally returned to the break room, my noodles had congealed into a sad, cold lump. "Important call," Bradley asked sarcastically. "Let me guess. The ramen company wants to sponsor you." "Something like that," I said quietly, dumping the noodles in the trash. "Whoa, wasting food now." Melissa gasped in mock horror. "That's like throwing away a whole dollar." 68 cents, I corrected and walked out. The next morning, I called in sick. Bradley would make jokes about ramen poisoning. Melissa would speculate about whether I could afford to miss a day's pay. Let them. The law offices of Blackwell, Sterling, and Associates occupied the top 3 floors of a building I'd walked past 1,000 times, but never entered. The elevator alone was nicer than my apartment. Harrison Blackwell looked exactly like I'd pictured. Silver-haired, immaculate suit, the kind of presence that commanded respect. But when he shook my hand, his smile was warm. "Ms. Martinez, I can only imagine how overwhelming this must be." "That's one word for it," I said, trying not to stare at the original Monet on his wall. What followed was 4 hours of paperwork, verification, and revelations. The Hamilton fortune wasn't just money, it was an empire. Steel mills, tech companies, real estate holdings across 6 continents, art collections that museums begged to display, a philanthropic foundation that had quietly shaped education policy for decades. The family lawyers have been searching for heirs since Charles Hamilton died last year, Harrison explained. He was eccentric, never married, no children. But he was obsessed with family legacy. He spent his final years tracking down every branch of the family tree. And he found me. He found records of Elena's daughter, your great-grandmother. The trail went cold there, but Charles set aside funds specifically to continue the search after his death. "You were remarkably difficult to find, Ms. Martinez. Your family did an excellent job of building new lives." New lives. I thought about Grandma Rosa, who cleaned houses for 50 years and never complained. About my mother, who died when I was 10, leaving me with nothing but stories about a legacy no one believed. "There is one condition," Harrison continued, sliding a document across the desk. Charles was very specific. "The heir must undergo a character assessment period." "A what?" "Essentially, a review of your past 5 years. Financial records, employment history, personal conduct." Charles wanted to ensure the fortune went to someone who understood the value of money, not just the spending of it. I almost laughed. So he wanted to make sure his heir wasn't a spoiled rich kid. In so many words, yes. The assessment will take about a week. During that time, we'll need to review your records. I hope that's acceptable. Acceptable. 5 years of scrimping and saving, of being mocked for my frugality, were about to become my qualification for inheriting billions. "That's fine," I said. Harrison smiled. "I thought it might be. I've rarely seen anyone live as carefully as you have, Ms. Martinez. 68-cent lunches are quite impressive on a $40,000 salary." "You already looked into me. Preliminary research only. The full assessment will be more thorough." In the meantime, he slid a black credit card across the desk. "This is linked to a temporary account for immediate needs. The limit is sufficient." I stared at the card. "I don't need." "Ms. Martinez," he interrupted gently, "you're about to become one of the wealthiest people in America. The media will descend like vultures. You'll need appropriate clothing, security, perhaps a more secure residence. Consider it in advance on your inheritance." That night, I sat in my studio apartment, the black card on my coffee table like a dangerous artifact. I could buy anything, everything. The designer clothes Melissa worshipped. The luxury car Bradley bragged about. Dinner at restaurants where appetizers cost more than my weekly grocery budget. Instead, I ordered Chinese food, still cheaper than those sweet green salads, and made a list. The next morning, I did buy a car. A Bentley Continental GT in midnight blue, because if you're going to make a statement, make it count. The salesman's eyes nearly fell out when I pointed to the one I wanted and said, "That one. Cash." "Would you like to test drive it first?" he stammered. "No need. I'll take it now." 3 hours later, paperwork takes time, even for cash purchases, I drove to Pinnacle Marketing. I was 2 hours late, but somehow, I didn't think anyone would fire me today. The parking garage attendant did a double take when I pulled in. "Nice rental," he said. "It's not a rental," I replied, finding my usual spot between Bradley's BMW and Melissa's Audi. My Bentley made them look like Hot Wheels. I walked through the lobby with my usual clothes. Jeans, a simple blouse, flats from Target. But something was different. Maybe it was the way I carried myself, or maybe it was the Hermes bag I'd bought to carry my instant noodles in. Either way, people noticed. The elevator ride felt longer than usual. When the doors opened on the marketing floor, I could hear the usual chatter from the break room. It was 11:47. Lunchtime. I walked in to find the usual crowd. Bradley was holding court, describing his weekend trip to some vineyard. Melissa was showing off her new designer shoes. Derek was complaining about his mortgage. They fell silent when they saw me. Well, Bradley recovered first. Look who decided to grace us with her presence. Rough night, Sophie. Had to save up for the gas to get here. I set my Hermes bag on the counter and pulled out a cup of instant noodles. The same brand. The same chicken flavor. "Actually," I said calmly, filling my cup with hot water, "I had to stop by the Bentley dealership. Buying a car takes longer than you'd think." Melissa laughed. "Right. Sophie bought a Bentley, and I bought a yacht." "A yacht sounds nice," I mused. "I should look into that." The lawyers mentioned something about a maritime portfolio. "Lawyers?" Derek's voice cracked slightly. I stirred my noodles, letting the silence stretch. Then I pulled out my phone and showed them the photo I'd taken with the car, the dealership's congratulations banner visible in the background. "That's..." Bradley's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "A Continental GT," I supplied helpfully. "The speed model." It was between that and the Mulsanne, but I thought the GT was more practical for city driving. "This is a joke," Melissa decided. "You rented it. For what? To impress us? That's really sad, Sophie." I shrugged and pulled up my banking app, showing a balance that had more zeros than phone numbers. "You're right. It is sad. Sad that I've sat here for 2 years, listening to you mock me for saving money. Sad that you equated someone's worth with their lunch choices." "How?" Derek whispered. "Turns out those family stories about being related to the Hamiltons weren't just stories," I said. DNA test confirmed it last week. I'm the sole heir to the Hamilton fortune, all 2.8 billion of it. The cup of noodles in Bradley's hand trembled. "Billion." With a B, I confirmed, taking a sip of my cheap noodle broth. "You know what the lawyers found during the character assessment? 5 years of financial records showing someone who understood the value of every dollar. Someone who chose instant noodles over impressing coworkers. Someone who knew that real wealth isn't about what you spend, but what you save." "We were just joking around," Melissa said weakly. "We didn't mean." "Yes, you did," I interrupted. "Every laugh, every snide comment, every time you made me feel small for not wasting money on overpriced salads. You meant all of it." I picked up my noodles and my Hermes bag. "But here's the thing, I'm still going to eat these noodles. Because they remind me of where I came from. Of my grandmother, who believed in a legacy everyone said was impossible. Of every sacrifice that led to this moment." "Sophie, wait," Bradley called as I headed for the door. Are you quitting?" I paused. "Why would I quit? I like my job. I'm good at it. Although," I smiled, "I might buy the company. It could use some leadership that values people for their work, not their lunch choices." The break room was silent as I left. I could imagine them Googling the Hamilton fortune, doing the math, realizing that the woman they'd mocked for eating 68-cent noodles could buy their entire lives without blinking. My phone rang as I reached my desk. Harrison Blackwell. "Ms. Martinez, I hope you're being careful with the news. These situations can be delicate." "I just told my coworkers," I admitted. "And?" "They're processing." He chuckled. "I imagine they are. On another note, the authentication is complete. The full inheritance is yours. Congratulations, Ms. Martinez. You are officially one of the wealthiest people in America." I looked around the office, at my small desk, my ancient computer, the motivational posters on the walls. "Thank you, Mr. Blackwell." "What will you do first?" he asked. "Most heirs go on spending sprees. Travel, parties." I thought about it. First, I'm going to finish eating my noodles. Then I'm going to get back to work on the Henderson campaign. After that, I think I'll look into that philanthropic foundation you mentioned. There are a lot of kids out there eating instant noodles because they have to, not because they're saving for something better. Charles Hamilton would have liked you, Harrison said warmly. He ate peanut butter sandwiches every day for lunch. Said it reminded him that money was a tool, not a master. After we hung up, I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. 47 emails from coworkers who'd suddenly remembered how much they'd always admired my work ethic. 16 LinkedIn requests from people who'd never spoken to me. 3 text messages from Bradley asking if I wanted to get drinks. I ignored them all and got back to work on the Henderson campaign. Because that's what you do when you have $2.8 billion. You remember who you were before the money, and you stay that person. At 3 p.m., our CEO, Robert Chen, appeared at my desk. I'd seen him maybe 5 times in 2 years, always from a distance. Ms. Martinez, he said, slightly out of breath. I heard about your situation. News travels fast, I observed. Yes, well, he adjusted his tie nervously. I wanted to personally welcome you to reassure you that your position here is, that is, we value your contributions and… Mr. Chen, I interrupted. Relax. I'm not buying the company today. Today. He paled. Maybe next week. I want to review the financials first. Although I am curious about our anti-bullying policies, they seem a bit lax. He glanced toward the break room, where Bradley and Melissa were probably still Googling my net worth. I'll look into that immediately. Good. Oh, and Mr. Chen. I'll be setting up a lunch program. Free meals for any employee making under $60,000 a year. No one should have to choose between gas money and eating a decent meal. That's very generous. It's necessary, I corrected. You'd be amazed what people can accomplish when they're not worried about their next meal. He left, walking faster than when he'd arrived. Within an hour, I'd received a company-wide email about a new zero-tolerance bullying policy and the announcement of the Martinez Lunch Initiative. The rest of the day was surreal. People who'd never acknowledged my existence suddenly remembered my name. The break room, usually loud with gossip when I entered, fell silent every time I walked by. Bradley sent 17 emails apologizing for his behavior. Melissa left a Starbucks gift card on my desk with a note about how she'd always admired my discipline. I left at exactly 5 p.m., like always. The parking garage attendant was waiting by my Bentley with his phone out. Is it okay if I… He gestured at the car. Sure, I said. Want to sit in it? His eyes widened. For real? Why not? It's just a car. As he reverently slid into the driver's seat, running his hands over the leather steering wheel, he said, I always noticed you were different. The way you said thank you every morning. Remembered my kid's name. Most people here don't even make eye contact. What's your name? I asked, realizing I'd never known. Marcus Williams. Well, Marcus, how would you like to head up security for my new foundation? I'll need someone I can trust, someone who understands that people matter more than their bank accounts. He nearly dropped his phone. You're serious. Dead serious. Think about it. The pay will be competitive. I drove home to my studio apartment, parking the Bentley next to a rusted Honda Civic. Tomorrow I'd look for a new place, somewhere with actual air conditioning and maybe a kitchen that didn't double as a closet. But tonight, I had instant noodles to eat and a future to plan. My phone had hundreds of messages. Old friends who'd lost touch suddenly missing me. Distant relatives discovering our deep family bond. Charities requesting donations. Interview requests from journalists fascinated by the instant noodle Harris. I ignored them all and called the one person who mattered. Blackwell, Sterling, and Associates. The receptionist answered. Harrison Blackwell, please. Tell him it's Sophie Martinez. He picked up immediately. Ms. Martinez, how was your first day as a billionaire? Educational, I said, heating water for my noodles. I have a question about the foundation Charles Hamilton set up. Of course. Can we expand it? I want to create a program for kids from low-income families. Full rides to college, living expenses covered, no questions asked. But with one requirement. What's that? They have to write an essay about a time they were mocked for being poor. About how it felt. What it taught them. I want kids who understand that money doesn't define your worth. It just amplifies who you already are. That's brilliant, actually. Charles would have loved it. Good. Let's start with 100 million. We'll call it the Ramen Scholarship. See how many lives we can change. After we hung up, I sat on my threadbare couch eating my 68-cent dinner and thought about Grandma Rosa. How she lived her entire life believing in a legacy no one else could see. How she died 6 months ago, just weeks before I finally saved enough for that DNA test. I did it, Grandma, I whispered to her photo on the wall. Just like you always said I would. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Hi, Sophie. This is James from it. I just wanted to say I'm sorry I never stood up for you more. You deserve better from all of us. I smiled and typed back. Thanks, James. See you tomorrow. I'll bring extra noodles. Because that's what $2.8 billion had taught me in a single day. Money changes everything except who you really are. And I was still Sophie Martinez, who ate instant noodles and saved every penny. I just happened to have a really good reason for saving. The next morning, I arrived at work in my Bentley, wearing the same Target flats, carrying my Hermes bag full of instant noodles. The irony wasn't lost on me, but then again, the best ironies never are. Bradley was waiting by my desk with coffee and a pastry from the expensive bakery down the street. Peace offering, he said quietly. I looked at the $8 coffee and $12 croissant. You know what would have been a better peace offering? Just being kind when it was free. He flinched but nodded. You're right, I was an ass. We all were. Yes, I agreed, you were. Is there any way to make it right? I considered this. Actually, yes. The Ramen Scholarship program I'm starting. I need someone to help identify kids who are struggling but too proud to ask for help. Kids who are skipping meals to save for their future. Think you can handle that without mocking them? His eyes widened. You trust me with that. I'm giving you a chance to be better than you were. What you do with it is up to you. He walked away with the expensive coffee still in his hands, looking thoughtful. Maybe he'd change. Maybe he wouldn't. But at least now he knew what it felt like to be judged for something as simple as a meal choice. By noon, news had broken. The instant noodle heiress was trending on social media. Photos of me from college eating ramen in the library. Security footage of me in the Bentley dealership, calmly pointing to the car I wanted. An interview with Marcus, the parking attendant, who called me the kindest rich person in America, and she was that way before the money. My email inbox exploded. Offers for book deals, reality shows, speaking engagements. Everyone wanted to know how it felt to go from ramen to riches overnight. But they were asking the wrong question. It wasn't about going from ramen to riches. It was about knowing your worth before the world decided to notice it. It was about Grandma Rosa, who scrubbed floors with hands that carried Hamilton blood. It was about my mother, who died believing in a fairy tale that turned out to be true. It was about every kid who ever ate cheap food while rich people laughed, knowing that someday, somehow, they'd prove everyone wrong. That night, I moved into a penthouse apartment with a view of the city. The realtor kept apologizing for it being modest at only 4,000 square feet. I didn't tell her that my studio apartment could fit in the walk-in closet. I unpacked my few possessions, Grandma's photo, Mom's jewelry box, my collection of instant noodle cups I'd been saving. Yes, I saved the cups. They reminded me of every sacrifice, every mockery, every moment that led to this one. The doorbell rang. A delivery. Inside was a case of instant noodles, the expensive kind, with real dried vegetables and premium noodles. The card read, "From Charles Hamilton's personal collection. He saved these for special occasions. Thought you'd understand. Harrison Blackwell." I laughed until I cried. Then I cried until I laughed again. Because somewhere, in whatever afterlife billionaire philanthropists go to, Charles Hamilton and Grandma Rosa were probably sharing a cup of instant noodles and smiling. And tomorrow, I'd walk into Pinnacle Marketing with my Hermes bag full of 68-cent noodles, ready to change the world one scholarship at a time. Because that's what you do when you have $2.8 billion and a grandma who believed in impossible things. You make them possible for everyone else.